coming on the air with a new update just into us literally 90 seconds ago on Hurricane Milton. It is getting bigger, faster. The National Hurricane Center just telling us the storm poses an extremely serious threat to Florida. Winds now up to 180 miles an hour. It would experts say will be the biggest storms in people's lifetime in Tampa Bay. Thousands are being told to get out fast. We're going to have the newest forecast, that track just in, and team coverage with our reporters live on the ground. We're also live tonight in Israel, marking 1 year since the deadliest terror attack against it in its history. The new warnings now to stay away from Lebanon's coast and the emotional remembrances. Then in tonight's original, the new criminal investigation into the death of an American woman, why a so-called Swiss suicide capsule is at the center of it. Plus, an NFL star faces new assault charges tonight. The stunning details from today's arraignment and what we're just hearing from his team. And the latest episode in the ongoing saga of fans behaving badly. Yes, raining down trash. Look at that in a playoff game after a pretty bonkers scene at the Dodgers-Padres playoffs. That's coming up later in the show. Hey there, I'm Hallie, and as we're coming on the air, Hurricane Milton is posing a very serious threat to Florida, according to the latest update from the National Hurricane Center we got in just the last couple of minutes. The forecast is now for winds up to 180 miles an hour. It's already a Cat 5. I want to show you right now a live look at some of the traffic out of Sun City, Florida right now. It's not so bad as we speak. We've seen it get more and more congested at different parts of the day. People are trying to get out before this storm hits. Some cars are already driving through some flooded roads like you see in some other parts of Florida, ahead of what forecasters predict could be the worst storm to hit Tampa Bay in 100 years. This thing is explosive right now. Okay, it's gone from a tropical storm to a Cat 5 in less than 24 hours, with preps happening as we speak and emergency declarations already in place, not even two full weeks after the last one for Hurricane Hallie. This is a double punch for people still cleaning up from Hallie, as our Jesse Kirsch heard about from one store owner in Sarasota.
In more than 30 years of business, has anything come close to what the last 2 weeks have been?
No. Last week I was focusing on the repairs. This time I'm focusing on where to put everything to get it out of the storm surge.
Tampa and Orlando International Airports both planning to close now until the worst of the storm passes. You saw those highways packed, classes at a bunch of colleges called off too. We've got team coverage tonight with Chase Kane in Orlando, Marissa Parra in Tampa, and Bill Cairns has the forecast. But Bill, let me start with you. So the National Hurricane Center, 5 o'clock Eastern. Here we are, still a Cat 5, right? Any word, any update on the track specifically?
Not a ton of changes, which if you're in the Tampa Bay area, you need a change. You got 48 hours for this to change. So this is a zoomed in view. I just want to kind of give you the historical perspective here. A very small 10-mile wide eye as it did one of the most incredible intensification runs we've ever seen. Right now, this is the 6th strongest hurricane we've ever recorded anywhere in the Atlantic. So the Gulf, the Caribbean, far off the coast of Africa. This is now number 6 on the list. And yesterday at this time, it was 85 miles per hour. Now it's 180. It's going up 95 miles per hour. That's practically unheard of. We've only had 2 storms that have had a quicker ramp up than that. So where is it going to go? Now it's starting to accelerate a little bit faster. It's been moving very slow throughout its life. Now it's up to 10 miles per hour. And this is the new cone from the Hurricane Center. And the most important thing, and there's a lot of confusion with this, no one is saying this is making it to Florida as a Category 5. So if you hear that rumor anywhere, you see it online, social media, that's not true. The Hurricane Center has not changed their forecast of a Category 3 landfall. Now, we always say, assume one worse. That's what you prepare for. So it could be a Category 4. We hope it's going to be even weaker than this, maybe even a Category 2. That would be ideal. But that cone of uncertainty goes from Fort Myers, Cape Coral, all the way up here to Cedar Key. Huge population center. Helene made landfall in one of the least populated spots. This storm has a chance of making landfall in the most populated spot in the west coast of Florida. So all of our computer lines are now really starting to come together. That spread is really narrowed. We're now focused here from Sarasota, Tampa Bay, St. Petersburg, just south of, Pinellas County here, Clearwater Beach. And then the whole key to this forecast when we go through the next couple days, you do not want to be on the bottom right side of this. The north side, the wind will blow the water out. You will not have that horrible storm surge. If you say the black line right now is the hurricane center, that'll be actually okay to the north here. To the south is where the water would pile up. This is where the historic storm surge would be. And Hallie, we do think, you know, someone's going to get this 8 to 12 feet of water, and that possibly could even be right in Tampa Bay. So here's our forecast for the storm surge. You know, notice that the forecast goes here. Notice north. This is where Helene made landfall. The Keaton Beach area, Cedar Key. This would not be devastated, but this area to the south, 8 to 12 feet. And Hallie, Tampa was 6 to 7 feet with Helene. If this is 8 to 12 feet, everyone knows where that water line was. You picture that 4 to 6 feet higher.
It's scary to think about. Bill, when do you think you'll have a sense more specifically of the track? I mean, are we looking at like 24 hours out? We'll start to get a better sense of that kind of thing?
One thing that's been happening is we keep pushing back the landfall. Now it's looking closer to midnight as we go from Wednesday into Thursday.
Okay.
And so that's still, you know, we're still more than 48 hours out. Roughly, Hallie, 48-hour air is typically right around 50 miles. And once we get within 24 hours, we narrow that down to 20 to 30 miles. So, you know, we still could, you know, shift this considerably in the next 2 days.
All right, Bill Cairns, thank you. We'll chat with you again, I know, as we keep getting those updates throughout the night. Let me bring in Chase Kane, who's live for us there in Orlando. Chase, talk to me about what you're seeing on the ground and the big picture here.
Yeah, Orlando is one of those places where a lot of coastal Floridians often evacuate to, Hallie, and they're saying this is one of the biggest evacuations that they've had to do here in Florida. More than 7 million people trying to move out of those most at-risk areas. And here we're more than 100 miles inland, and you can see that even folks here in Orlando are taking this seriously. They're filling up sandbags. Orange County alone says they've already given out more than 100,000 sandbags because here in Orlando, when Hurricane Ian came through just a couple of years ago, they got 13, 15 inches of rain in some places, and that triggered flash flooding. They had to rescue hundreds of people from their homes. So even well inland here in Orlando, they are taking this threat seriously, Hallie.
There's also a climate connection here, too, right?
Yeah, I mean, Bill was just talking about this rapid intensification that Milton is breaking all sorts of records. The second fastest to go from a Category 1 to a Category 5 hurricane. So here's some context on that. The regular threshold for rapid intensification is 35 miles an hour in wind speed increase in less than 24 hours. Extreme rapid intensification, which is a relatively new term that meteorologists are using, that's 58 miles an hour in 24 hours. But look at what Milton did, 92 mile an hour increase in less than 24 hours. And that is one of the hallmark signatures of what climate change is doing to hurricanes, Hallie.
Chase Kane, live for us there in Orlando. Thank you. Let me go to Marissa Parra now, live in Tampa. And Marissa, I think you're in some of the traffic, right, as people are looking to get out. What are you seeing? How are the roads? How's the evacuation?
Well, I can tell you there's a lot of people who are making their way out of St. Petersburg. And this is where we've spent the last couple of hours, Hallie. And I want to talk about that in just a moment. But for those who are just joining us, I want to make it clear I am not driving. My producer, Aaron, is driving next to me. I am in the passenger seat. I've got the window down. And it's probably hard to tell, but there is a steady stream of cars. My phone going off. Know that there is, it says, a hurricane warning in effect, mandatory evacuation, zone A, B, and C. And I actually was just on the phone not that long ago with St. Petersburg Fire and Rescue to kind of get a sense of context. When was the last time they did zone C evacuations? And he said, at least not since Irma to his recollection, and that was in 2017. So Hallie, in terms of what we are seeing on the ground, I'm seeing a lot of people who are taking this more seriously than they've ever taken any hurricane in their life. I have been covering hurricanes in Tampa at NBC for a few years now. And I've never seen people taking it this seriously. A lot of concerns that the luck that they have had for almost 100 years might be running out with life-threatening storm surge on the way. And then, of course, a lot of questions on what that wind is going to do to these vulnerable communities with all that debris. Hallie.
It feels very stark when you put it the way that experts have, Marissa, that this could be the worst storm that nearly anybody alive has seen in and around Tampa Bay. Marissa Parra, thank you. Buckled up in the passenger seat. It's a good note. We'll check back in with you. I know. Thanks, Marissa. Appreciate it. So, as we talked about, all of this is happening less than 2 full weeks. It's just about 10 days after Hurricane Helene ripped through Florida and then, of course, created that devastation in North Carolina and Tennessee. You've now got U.S. troops out there, FEMA, trying to help with the recovery, trying to help with the cleanup, with some 130,000 people still without power. Some of them don't have any water even now. Antonia Hilton is in Burnsville with the latest on the recovery there. Hey, Antonia.
Hey, Hallie, you know, it's really starting to set in for people just how challenging and how long this recovery may be. In the Asheville area, some residents have been told that it will be weeks before they have running water again. I'm in Burnsville. This is a much more small and remote community in the mountains, about 40 to 60 minutes away from the city of Asheville. And some people are telling us they were told that it could be a few months before their water is back and their infrastructure is back to normal. So that's, of course, devastating. People here, of course, they need food still and hot meals. They need cleaning supplies and they need bottles of water. But soon, as the weather gets colder, it's already October, they're going to need winter clothing, jackets, blankets, and sleeping bags. And so, you know, I think this is important context, especially in this moment now where politics, concerns about disinformation and misinformation are starting to come into the conversation too. And I think it's important to put these things into two camps. The first is that because of all of what I just described, there are a lot of people who are righteously hurting and worried. They're wondering why there isn't more federal aid. In this community, many people have told me they simply have not seen FEMA representatives. They know they're here in the state, but they just haven't seen them with their own eyes. And so, of course, what comes with that is a feeling of abandonment. But then the other side of the conversation are the kinds of things that we've heard from former President Trump at rallies or Elon Musk, suggesting that the money has been taken to migrants instead, when in fact those are two different government programs and two different budgets, that FEMA's only going to give up to $750 to people when that's one form of assistance, but there are other forms of assistance that people can make applications for, and already millions of dollars of aid have been approved just in this state alone. And so it's sort of balancing those two things, the reality that FEMA may need to send more people into communities like this one, to have more of a ground presence and to acknowledge the hurt that people truly do have, while also trying to parse through some of the misinformation so that people aren't afraid and they are able to call when they are in need, to apply for things that they deserve and make the decisions that they need to make during what's already going to be a complicated enough recovery without the added layer of the misinformation and the conspiracies that can already just compound all the anxiety people here are feeling, Hallie.
Antonia Hilton live for us in North Carolina. Thank you. Overseas now, Israel tonight warning people to stay away from coastal Lebanon as they plan to expand military operations there. Now marking 1 year since the October 7th Hamas attacks. Israelis taking in this day with somber ceremonies, no end in sight to the war that's consuming much of the region. Exactly 1 year ago today, 1,200 people were killed, 250 others kidnapped in that brutal Hamas attack. Since then, more than 42,000 people have been killed in Gaza, with a number of hostages still in captivity. Israel says they'll keep fighting.
This is the war of our existence, the war of revival.
All of it is here in the U.S. Hundreds of students again protest on the campus of Columbia in some big dueling demonstrations. You see some here with people clashing on both sides. Aaron McLaughlin is live for us in Tel Aviv tonight. Israel is picking up heavy attacks, not just in Lebanon, but in Gaza, too, right? Talk to us about the latest.
Yeah, that's right, Hallie. In the last 24 hours, according to Palestinian officials, more than 60 Palestinians have been killed in Gaza. This as Israel launches yet another offense there in the north, ordering the evacuation of some 300,000 Palestinians and targeting the Jabalia refugee camp. It is worth noting that this is the fourth time the Israeli military has launched an offensive on that refugee camp. And this is where the Israeli military is a year into the war, which raises a whole host of questions, given that Hamas is much smaller in size than Hezbollah. And given the limited nature of the operation, the Israeli military says will be concentrated there on the border with Lebanon. What can they possibly achieve? Now, also today, Israel was the subject of multiple attacks from three different fronts: rockets fired from Gaza, rockets fired from Lebanon, and rockets fired from Yemen. This as the region is bracing for Israel's response to Iran's missile strikes from last week. Hallie.
And Aaron, as people in Israel are remembering the deadliest day in the country's history, it is a somber moment for them, for so many.
Yeah, that's right, Hallie. I was at the gathering in Hostage Square, what's known as Hostage Square here in Tel Aviv. Thousands of Israelis gathering and openly weeping. There's so much sadness. It's clear that what happened on October 7th, the horrors that unfolded, is still a gaping and open wound. That's especially true for Rita Lifshitz. She's a resident of kibbutz Nir Oz, one of the hardest hit of the kibbutzim. A quarter of that kibbutz was either kidnapped or killed on October 7th. Her father-in-law, 84 years old, is thought to still be inside Gaza. And she says that she is extremely concerned that with this ever-expanding war, that he could be potentially left behind along with the other hostages. Hallie.
Erin McLaughlin, thank you very much. In just the last hour, Vice President Kamala Harris is also remembering 1 year since those October 7th attacks. I want to show you here. She's planting a pomegranate tree at her D.C. home alongside her husband, Doug Emhoff. There she is. She's saying the path now is to free the hostages and to relieve the suffering of Palestinians in Gaza.
What is asked of us? We must uphold the commitment to repair the world, an idea that has been passed on throughout generations of the Jewish people and across many faiths.
The VP is now on her way to New York City. You see her in just maybe the last 2 minutes talking about the upcoming hurricane and about former President Trump's lies about FEMA aid. But once she's in New York, she's going to look to get her message out, not just to voters, but to viewers, with broadcasts and podcasts. You see it all here. Tomorrow, she's got Howard Stern. She's got The View. She's doing Late Night with Stephen Colbert. After a couple of high-profile interviews we'll show you during the show here. Monica Alba is live for us here in D.C. And Monica, she's come under some fire, specifically from Republicans who have said, hey, she's avoiding the press. She's got to get out there. She's got to do more. This week, she is, right? In some instances, some friendly interviews. In some instances, for the Harris-Walz campaign, not so friendly, with Tim Walz going on Fox this weekend, for example. Talk us through the strategy and how they're seeing this moment.
Yeah, with just less than a month to go, Hallie, this is really a moment where Harris aides tell me they're going to try to take every opportunity they can get to reach a maximum amount of voters, of listeners, of viewers. And that's what you're going to see the vice president do this week. Tomorrow, she'll be in New York, what you just mentioned, an onslaught of every kind of media and every kind of different time of day, morning shows, late night, everything in between. And tonight she'll be on 60 Minutes for that extended interview with her running mate, Governor Tim Walz. So this is after there had been a lot of pressure. There had been critics, mostly Republicans, saying that she needed to get out there, but even some Democrats wondering if in this truncated timeline of a candidacy, which she has had to run since she took over the top of the ticket, whether she could be doing more, and frankly saying that she should be doing more. And we know because of her official job, she's juggling a lot of other things too. So she's doing internal briefings at all times and dealing with things like the hurricane in real time that take her away from some of the campaign trail obligations. So I'm told she really is trying to juggle all of that and do both at the same time. And this week will be another really critical test because of Hurricane Milton, as you've just been discussing.
You know, we heard the vice president's remarks. We talked about what she said, the way that she's commemorating October 7th, of course. She was also asked on 60 Minutes, the full interview of which will air, I think, tonight, about the U.S. relationship with Israel and about Benjamin Netanyahu, which is getting a lot of attention today. Let's play it.
Do we have a real close ally in Prime Minister Netanyahu?
I think, with all due respect, the better question is, do we have an important alliance between the American people and the Israeli people? And the answer to that question is yes.
This is a topic that she has that has a very big spotlight on it, obviously, right now, and specifically for her too.
Yeah, and she said a lot there by not answering that direct question, which is really clear, Hallie. And this has been an issue in which the vice president has at times gone a little bit further than the president, while always saying that the administration is in lockstep on supporting Israel and its right to defend itself, and never more so than today on the one-year anniversary of those heinous attacks, of course. So this is something that she will continue to walk a fine line on, but she is, of course, trying to weigh this to make sure that she's communicating that message that she serves in her official capacity, but also as a candidate where she may have a little bit of distance from the current president. Hallie.
And Monica, real quick before we let you go, as we talk about the hurricane, we have that coverage continuing. Ron DeSantis is not taking the vice president's calls. Do I have that right?
Yeah, and our own Tara Prindiville, who is our colleague in the White House unit who's traveling with VP Harris, just asked her about that on the tarmac. And specifically, the vice president responded and said that it is irresponsible, she said, at this moment to be playing politics with any of this when so many lives are at stake. And she did ask everybody to heed FEMA's warnings and to be sure to get out of the path of the storm. But yes, that is something where tragically there's this storm, but the politics plays a role too. And the VP, a big part of that story now is the candidate. But also we understand that President Biden hasn't been able to be in touch with Governor DeSantis either. Hallie.
Gotcha. Monica Alba, thank you very much. We talked about Vice President Harris. Of course, former President Trump today is also remembering the October 7th attacks at an event near his Florida home. He was up in New York earlier. There he is at a Jewish holy site in Queens. But it's his rhetoric on another topic that seems to be ramping up more and more. Baseless allegations about election fraud. Not even in the 2020 election, which he lost and still lies about, but on the one that literally has not even happened yet. Mr. Trump appears to be preemptively sowing the seeds of doubt if he loses this time around. Keep in mind, none of the votes have even been counted yet, despite his repeated insistence on one word. Listen for it.
They cheat, but they cheat from months before. I've never seen anything like it.
They're going to cheat. They cheat. That's all they want to do is cheat. We win, and when we win, we're going to prosecute people that cheat on this election.
You got to get out and vote and make sure they're not cheating. Make sure your vote counts. These people cheat. They cheat like hell.
If you have mail-in ballots, there will be cheating. Our primary focus is not to get out the vote. It's to make sure they don't cheat. Anybody that can cheat in elections like they cheat is not stupid.
So again, we said it before. We showed you that. Let me just make it super clear again. There is no evidence of cheating in an election that has not happened yet. Dasha Burns is live for us in Doral. Why, Dasha? Why now does it seem like the former president is ramping up the rhetoric around this?
So look, Hallie, it's been interesting to watch how the rhetoric has changed as the top of the Democratic ticket has changed. I will tell you that the frequency and the intensity of these claims that the Democrats are somehow going to cheat in November, which, as you said, has no basis in fact, that has increased since Harris took over as the Democratic Party nominee. When it was Biden, the rallies were celebratory. They were almost victory laps already. The Trump team thought they had it in the bag. Then things changed, and now he has been increasingly sowing these seeds of doubt, these seeds of skepticism, these seeds of concern among his base that something nefarious is happening. And he's been claiming that Harris, that there was a coup to knock Biden out. He's been using a metaphor about boxing, how, you know, you knock out a fighter and then they put another one in. And then, of course, the word cheat is used at every rally multiple times, Hallie.
There's also this tone that even he acknowledges can be dark and has been dark in just the last week or so in recent days.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. I mean, look, on Saturday in Butler, Pennsylvania, he did spend the first part of his speech commemorating Corey Comparator, the man who was killed at that rally, honoring those who were impacted. But then the second half of the speech very much turned to anger, frustration, blasting the Biden-Harris administration, claiming that they maybe even tried to kill him, that they implying the left. And again, that tone has also changed since Harris took over. There was a much more celebratory, jovial vibe to the rallies when it was President Biden at the top of the ticket, and they were feeling very, very confident. The numbers have changed, the circumstances have changed, the backdrop to this race has changed, and the former president is not happy about that, and he's making that clear in these speeches, Hallie.
Dasha Burns, live for us there at Doral. Dasha, thank you very much. We'll check back in with you, I know, throughout the night. Elon Musk's super PAC is now making a big offer to give $47 to every registered voter in the 7 key battlegrounds. Any voter who signs an online petition backing the First Amendment and the Second Amendment, and who also successfully refers it to somebody else to sign also. Seemingly, Musk is trying to find, or this PAC is trying to find supporters of former President Trump to help him out, because Musk backs Mr. Trump. This, yes, is the world's richest man, burrowing deeper into this election, pushing to get 1 million signatures and offering up a lot of money to get there. Of course, that's just after this weekend we saw Musk quite literally jumping on stage at a rally with the former president in Pennsylvania, in Butler. We should note NBC News reached out to American PAC for comment, but have not heard back yet. Let me bring in Emily Wilkins. So strategy, right? Like, here's money. And not nothing, $47 will get you like a few lattes, right? Like, here's money in these key battlegrounds if you go and sort of sign on to this issue that I care about. What's the strategy here? What's the thinking for Musk?
So obviously, you can just see from the website that you pulled up that this doesn't, it's not about Trump, it's not about Harris. I mean, apparently the petition is just about the First and Second Amendment. Right. But if you look at what they're asking for, it's the name, it's the email address, and it's the cell phone number for voters in these 7 critical swing states. Now, the website does say that the cell phone number will only be used to verify whether a petition signer is legitimate, but you got to look at some of the context here. Musk's PAC, we ran into hot water earlier this year when they ran these digital ads directing people to a website that was meant to help voters register, but instead, for swing state voters, they collected things like their cell phone number. And now that PAC is under investigation by North Carolina and Michigan for its efforts to collect voter data in battleground states and not apparently register them as they initially promised to do so. So this petition seems like a slightly different version of maybe what Musk was aiming for earlier in terms of getting some of that voter data and some of those voter cell phone numbers, which, of course, this day and age, any campaign is going to be trying to reach out to voters in those swing states and find as many ways to contact them as possible.
Yeah, it's a good point, Emily. It doesn't go directly to Donald Trump, Kamala Harris, but obviously there's a lot to it, especially with Musk showing up at Mr. Trump's rally there in Butler, Pennsylvania this weekend. Emily Wilkins, it's great to see you. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. We've got a lot more to get to coming up here on the show, including thousands of Verizon users dealing with the second outage in a week. We'll tell you in just a minute why it may happen again soon. Plus, the shocking arrest of an NFL star. What exactly we're learning about the accusations against him. All of it when we are back right here on NBC News Now in just a minute. Whole Foods is pulling a 180 tonight after this whole social media uproar over what it puts in one of its most popular cakes. Let me tell you, hang with me here. Here's what went down. Fans of this berry chantilly cake taking to social media in the last few weeks. So they're going online after noticing that the new slices of this cake were stuffed with like kind of a jam instead of stuffed with fresh fruit and cream. I'm going to explain why this matters, but first I want you to watch.
Is a victim of shrinkflation. I don't know if you can see that. The berries are on the outside, and they just put like some jam in the middle. Also, it's half the size it used to be.
Okay, so did you hear her there? She's saying this is skimpflation in their view, a classic case, right? When companies change their products, maybe change the ingredients, change how much you're getting to try to cut back on costs. In the last few years, brands like Gatorade changed the design of their bottles. They made them smaller. Customers noticed Scott toilet paper changed what it's made from, which they argue made the quality less appealing. As for the cake, Whole Foods is now reversing course. They say they're going to restore the slices to the original recipe as soon as this week. Emily Aketa joins us now. The story is not the cake, Emily. The story is what the cake represents here, right? In this moment where so many people are feeling like their hard-earned dollars just don't go as far.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think an important thing to remember here is just 2 years ago, we saw some of the highest inflation levels recorded in a matter of decades. So while we are seeing some improvement in inflation now, people are coming out of, we are in the wake of a severe inflationary period. Food prices are up some 25% compared to the start of the pandemic. So that means consumers, they are sensitive to the value of things. They're not just looking at the price tags. They're not just looking at the quantity, how much is in the bag. They're not just looking at the quality, what it's made of, but they're even shifting their shopping habits to make sure that they can get to the best deals as possible. And here is a situation where they feel like the quality went down, but the price didn't, Hallie.
What about this cake moved the needle to get a company like Whole Foods to do something so quickly about it? I mean, this is, like, to be clear, this is a popular cake.
Yes, absolutely. This was a viral cake before this whole skimpflation thing. This was a very popular cake for some 20 years. It's been at Whole Foods. So people really care when they notice changes to it. And of course, sometimes companies, we will see them, they will switch out ingredients for a number of different reasons. Maybe it saves them money, and they typically do so in a quiet fashion. Maybe it's for accessibility, some kind of ingredient they can't access because of supply chain slowdowns. But this is one that fans definitely noticed. And in the digital age, the age of social media, companies get immediate feedback, and this is one where people really share that feedback, and it reached a viral sensation. By the way, Hallie, of course, for research purposes.
I knew you'd have it. I knew it. Yes.
Of course. And I will say, you know, it's these berries that people are so interested in. This is my second piece. It is good. I get it. I get it, people. I'm glad they fought the good fight.
You have the OG cake. That's not jam. That's not compote.
That's right.
For real. Yeah.
They're bringing it back. The whole cake still has the OG cake, but they are bringing it back by slice too. So I'll have to send some to DC for you.
Oh my God, please do. Emily Aketa, queen of the props. Thank you. Enjoy. Thanks for talking us through it. Let's get you over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, let's talk about Panera, because tonight that company is settling with the family of a college student with a heart condition who died after drinking that charged lemonade. This was the first of 4 lawsuits against Panera over the very caffeinated drink, which it ended up discontinuing. The family's attorney says they resolved the matter but didn't get into specifics. Panera did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Number 2, Georgia's Supreme Court today reinstating that state's 6-week abortion ban. It just went into effect 5 p.m. Eastern, so right at the top of the hour. Remember, just last week, a lower court judge blocked the law, but the state's appealing, so for now, it's back in effect. The ban is. Number 3, this U.S. Supreme Court is kicking off a new term with a big decision, rejecting an appeal from R. Kelly. Remember, the singer is currently serving a 20-year prison sentence after being convicted of child sex crimes in Chicago. His lawyers brought up a timing issue, but the Supreme Court said they will not hear the case. They didn't say why. It will look at other cases later on the term, though, including some with a focus on guns, gender-affirming care, and free speech. Number 4, today thousands of people are reporting problems with Verizon cell service just 1 week after a different outage that created problems with Verizon cell service, and a couple of months after that big AT&T problem that created issues with AT&T's cell service. Verizon says the whole thing's now fixed. Number 5, check it out, basketball history. LeBron James and his son Bronny now becoming the first father-son duo to play together in an NBA game. This was preseason, right? Not regular season, but still pretty incredible. LeBron called it surreal. There they are. Coming up here on the show, more to get to, including firefighters trying to get a handle on very intense wildfires in North Dakota right now. We'll tell you why they're getting so big so quickly after the break. A star safety and team captain for the New England Patriots tonight, charged with assault and battery, strangulation, and drug possession. This is Jabril Peppers appearing in a Massachusetts court where he pleaded not guilty. Peppers was arrested over the weekend after police responded to a call about a fight between him and his girlfriend, according to court documents. According to the police report, a woman was treated by EMS at the scene. Peppers has been ordered to not have any contact with the alleged victim. Tremaine Lee is joining us now with more. Did we learn anything else from today's arraignment? What do we know about what else allegedly happened?
Hallie, we did learn a little bit. As you mentioned, police were called to a home around 4 a.m. on Saturday for that alleged altercation between Peppers and his girlfriend. Now, what we learned from court documents today is that he, quote, hit her, choked her, took off her clothing, and put her outside. She repeated that he choked her at least 6 times, and she did not lose consciousness. Now, when police arrived, Peppers said, I know what is going on, and he was arrested without incident. But they also found a clear plastic bag with a white powdery substance. They tested it, and it came out to be cocaine.
What is next for Peppers, Tremaine? Have we heard anything from the Patriots about this whole thing?
Yeah, so Peppers posted $2,500 bail. His next court appearance is a few days before Thanksgiving, November 22nd. He was actually allowed to waive his appearance. Now, the team did release a statement. They said, quote, we are aware of an incident involving Jabril Peppers over the weekend in which the police are currently investigating. We will have no further comment at this time. Now, first-year coach Gerard Mayo, he said this.
He's not in the building today. You know, he has his appearance and things like that. But as we gather information, he can definitely be in the building. Like we don't know enough to say he shouldn't be in the building.
Now, Mayo also said that the players need to know about this, and perhaps whatever happened might be a teaching moment, something to learn from. Hallie.
Tremaine Lee, thank you for that update. Appreciate it. To the original now with in-depth reporting on a topic we've been watching. And tonight it is a super controversial so-called suicide capsule. And the advocacy groups behind it who say they've stopped taking applications for it because of a criminal investigation. Last month, an American woman was the first to use the device intended for assisted suicide in a Swiss forest. Switzerland has some of the most permissive laws in the world for assisted suicide. but the use of this capsule has become a flashpoint. Yasmin Vasugian has more, with a warning that this deals with topics some viewers may find upsetting.
An American woman is dead after a novel suicide in Switzerland. The woman choosing the time and manner of her own death, described as being, quote, seriously ill by the organization, The Last Resort, who provided the device dubbed the suicide capsule. The only man present when she died at a private forest retreat, arrested by Swiss authorities and in pretrial detention, despite assisted suicide being legal in Switzerland. The group running the device now suspending applications. The suicide took place on September 23rd inside the 3D printed Sarco capsule developed by an Australian physician.
So you've got a precipitous drop in the oxygen level in the capsule.
Here, the physician, Dr. Philip Nitschke, describing the capsule before it was used.
Within 2 breaths of air of that low level of oxygen, they will start to feel disorientated, uncoordinated, slightly euphoric before losing consciousness.
In a statement after the suicide, he said he was, quote, pleased that the Sarco had performed exactly as it had been designed to do. But almost immediately after its first use, an investigation launched by local authorities with a number of arrests made and, quote, the Sarco suicide capsule secured. The organization says the woman was 64 years old but refused to release her identity. They went on to say, quote, she had explained and confirmed beforehand that she wished to die for a long time and would be acting voluntarily to end her own life in the Sarco. They also said she pushed the button that activated the nitrogen, which killed her, voluntarily and unaided. The Last Resort and Exit International, an organization advocating for the right of adults to end their lives, believe no laws were broken. According to the organization website, the Sarco suicide capsule, quote, lowers the level of oxygen in the capsule to lethal levels. The person inside breathes normally. Consciousness is lost within seconds. Death follows peacefully a few minutes later.
I pretty much believe that it's like falling asleep at night in your own bed when you're seeking your dreams.
That activist and developer was present when the American woman died and is still in detention, according to The Last Resort. Under Swiss law, assisted suicide is legal as long as it's done altruistically, if the patient has decision-making capacity and can actually initiate the suicide themselves. Here in the U.S., it's legal in 11 states now, as well as D.C., with a measure on the ballot in 3 more states this year, according to advocacy group Death with Dignity. And those laws only apply to legal residents of those states.
Physician-assisted suicide has been legal in parts of the U.S. since the 90s, but the laws are incredibly narrow. We're really talking about people who are going to unfortunately die soon anyway, and in most cases want to abbreviate the end of their lives to avoid suffering.
It's also legal in at least 10 other countries, according to the World Federation of Right to Die Societies. Back in Switzerland, the country's more permissive laws around assisted suicide attracting visitors.
Activists would say that Switzerland is the one place in the world that allows so-called suicide tourism. Effectively, a person can fly into Switzerland and receive a physician-assisted death in a clinic outside Zurich within a few days.
The Last Resort now saying it halted applications to use the Sarco, adding that 371 people were applying, but that the process will be suspended until the criminal investigation is concluded.
Yasmin Vasugian is joining us now. Yas, it's our understanding that on the same day as this American woman died, the Swiss health minister was actually speaking with Parliament about this exact device, right?
Yeah, so the Last Resort, the organization here, they actually issued a statement on this saying, in fact, it was completely coincidental that the Prime Minister was speaking about the Sarco, this kind of quote-unquote suicide capsule, the same day that it was being used for, by the way, the very first time for the death of this woman. And you ask, right, why, in fact, were folks arrested if it is legal in Switzerland for assisted suicide? I want to read for you exactly what the Prime Minister said in her address, or the Health Minister, I should say, in her address, saying, on one hand, it does not fulfill the demands of the product safety law, and as such must not be brought into circulation. Going on to say, on the other hand, the corresponding use of nitrogen is not compatible with the article on purpose in the chemicals law, essentially saying that this capsule was built to kill and it is not safe to use, and also that the use of nitrogen is illegal under the laws in Switzerland. So that's in one box. Then also just addressing what's on the measure here in the United States. 3 states right now with assisted suicide on the ballot. We got Michigan, New York, and Pennsylvania.
Yasmin Vasugian, thank you very much for that. Just a reminder, if you or somebody you know is struggling, you can call or text the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline by dialing 988 or by texting HOME to 741-741. NBC News covers hundreds of other stories every day. And because it can be tough to read or watch or listen to them all, our bureau teams have done it for you. This is what they tell us is going on in their regions in a segment we call The Local. Out of our Midwest Bureau, one person is dead and others are being evacuated after wildfires in North Dakota. It's estimated that some 25,000 acres have burned, and these fires are getting stronger because it's so windy and so dry. Out of our Western Bureau, students at Northern Arizona University are scrambling to move out of their dorms because of a bat infestation in one building. Too many bats. There they are, swarming this campus building. The university says they've reached out to some local health services for support after confirming at least one of the bats has, yes, tested positive for rabies. They say some students got a rabies shot just to be safe, and apparently students will be relocated to other housing for the rest of the school year. And out of our Northeast Bureau, meteorologists now declared the winner of a real-life treasure hunt in Massachusetts. The founders of this digital hunt set up clues every day for people who are participating. The meteorologist says he found the 24-karat gold statue prize after looking at weather patterns in the area where the treasure is being live streamed online. This tiny little statue, that's $26,000. So there you go. To the Middle East now, and today protests in Israel, like in Tel Aviv, calling for the release of the 100 or so hostages still in Gaza, taken by Hamas on October 7th. We don't know how many of them are alive. For the ones who made it out of Gaza, for them and their families, it is not easy to move on. Our Raf Sanchez spoke with a man whose wife and two daughters were taken hostage 1 year ago and who are now home.
It began with this heart-stopping video. Yoni Asher watching in disbelief as his wife Duran and two daughters were seized by Hamas, loaded onto a tractor, and kidnapped into Gaza.
That video, I think, changed my life.
We first met Yoni on October 9th, 48 hours after the attack, as he searched for scraps of information about Duran and their children, Raz, 5, and Aviv, 2.
You never imagine your girls and your wife would fall down to Hamas' hands.
Showing us how he tracked his wife's phone as it disappeared into Gaza. For 49 days, Yoni had no news of his family.
ממחר גשם, חורף, מה יהיה על ילדינו הקטנים? איך נוכל לישון בלילה?
And then, just after Thanksgiving, a hostage deal. Duran, Raz, and Aviv freed in the temporary ceasefire and back in their father's arms. Today, not even a full year after her release, Raz looks like any other carefree kid on the beach. But the journey here hasn't been easy.
Sometimes Raz is saying to me that she's afraid and she's having nightmares and she sees the evil persons in her mind all the time.
Are they the same little girls they were before October 7th?
Well, unfortunately, no. I can tell you that this is not the same girls. Sometimes my younger daughter, Aviv, she has something that's called night fears. She's screaming that someone is hurting her, her stomach is hurting, she's crying, and there is nothing you can do about it.
The sight of a tractor enough to snap the girls back to the moment of their kidnapping. Sometimes Raz asks her dad, why wasn't he with them on that awful day?
The most difficult part is me not being with them, even though rationally I know that if I was with them, I would not be released.
In Gaza, the girls were, at first, held in a family apartment, like this one, stormed by Israeli troops during a rescue mission. Later, they remember being moved to a cramped cell in Nasser Hospital. Their grandmother, Efrat, was killed on October 7th. Her partner, 80-year-old Gadi Moses, like most of the men, is still a hostage.
Your whole family is getting support. Is it helping?
We are getting in therapy and we're getting social worker support, yet there is no professional knowledge about those kind of situations, so we have to follow our instinct.
Despite everything they've been through, the girls have shown extraordinary resilience, returning to their old school and settling back into their lives.
They are forcing us to get better, because a child forces you to sing, to smile, to dance. You have no choice, and that heals you.
They're keeping you strong?
They're keeping me strong. They are inspiration to me. This is the true victory, not a revenge, not hate, to make sure that their life will be long and full with happiness.
A family that's healing, one step at a time.
Raf Sanchez is joining us now from Tel Aviv. Raf, it is so powerful to hear him talk about having to smile and sing for the kids, that in so many ways it's the little girls who are helping the rest of the family, quote unquote, readjust. But as you point out, as he points out, that is a very long process, and it's going to take a lot of support and a lot of help.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Yoni and his family have walked a very difficult road already. They have a very difficult road ahead. Yoni told me he is optimistic that because his daughters were so young, 2 and 5, that they may potentially be able to put this traumatic experience behind them in a way that an older child, a teenager, might struggle to. And the family is now readjusting from, these literally life and death questions that they were facing to just how do you put a normal life back together. Yoni is trying to get his business back up and running, but he is also very, very committed to the other 101 hostages who are still in Gaza. He's campaigning for their release. Hallie, it's worth saying there were around 30 children and teenagers who were kidnapped by Hamas on October 7th. Almost all of them out of Gaza now, except for the 2 youngest hostages, the baby Kafir Bibas, who is 9 months old, and his 4-year-old brother. Their fate remains unknown. Hallie.
Thank you. That does it for us. More coverage picks up right now. We are coming on the air with a new update just into us tonight on Hurricane Milton. It is getting bigger, faster, as we now know this storm is a very serious threat to Florida, and what experts say will be the biggest storm in people's lifetimes in Tampa Bay. Thousands being told to get out fast. We've got the newest forecast, the latest track, and team coverage with our reporters live on the ground and in the traffic. We're also live overseas in Israel, marking 1 year since the deadliest terror attack against it in its history. The new warnings now to stay away from Lebanon's coast, and the new protests we're just seeing today on college campuses. Then, why, in just the last hour, Vice President Harris is accusing the Florida governor of political gamesmanship for refusing to pick up his phone. And an NFL star faces new assault charges tonight. Some pretty surprising details from today's arraignment and what we're just hearing from his team. Then, how the outrage over one Whole Foods cake explains a whole new trend that's giving you maybe less bang for your buck. We're talking skimpflation in the cake down later in the show. Hey there, I'm Hallie, and as we're coming on the air, Hurricane Milton is creating a very serious threat to Florida. This is according to the latest update from the National Hurricane Center. And that's probably not surprising, right? You got this storm that is now a Category 5. The forecast for winds up to 180 miles an hour. And I want to show you, it's heading straight for Tampa Bay. This is Sun City, Florida. Right now, the traffic's not too bad. Although if you look at this side, look at that. That's people trying to get out. They're trying to evacuate because officials are saying to people, get out and get out fast. You have these cars lining up. You have some driving through flooded roads even already, like you're seeing some here in Boca Raton, other parts of Florida, ahead of what forecasters predict could be the worst storm to hit this area in 100 years. And this hurricane, Milton, is exploding, transforming from a tropical storm to a Cat 5 in less than 24 hours. That very rarely happens. You've got this emergency declaration in place, not even 2 full weeks after the last one for Hurricane Hallie, a double punch for people still cleaning up from the last storm, as our Jesse Kirsch heard about from a store owner in Sarasota.
In more than 30 years of business, has anything come close to what the last 2 weeks have been?
No. Last week I was focusing on the repairs. This time I'm focusing on where to put everything to get it out of the storm surge.
So the focus tonight is on getting out and getting out quickly before those airports shut down. Tampa International is going to close down tomorrow morning. You've got Orlando up here that's set to close down on Wednesday as well till the worst of the storm passes. You can see some colleges are shut down as well. We've got team coverage tonight. Chase Kane is joining us live from Orlando. We've got Marissa Parra on the scene and Bill Cairns with the forecast. Marissa, let me start with you because you've covered a lot of hurricanes. You've been in Florida for quite a while. This one, I know you're reporting, feels different, right?
In every way, Hallie, especially in Tampa, because I will tell you, I have been in Tampa for several hurricanes over the last couple of years. And one thing I've always noticed is this confidence among people who live here. Even with Hurricane Ian, people here referenced Ian saying we dodged a bullet. They talked about how they always seem to dodge the worst of it. But this is the first time I'm hearing people saying they're afraid that their luck is about to run out. We're hearing that from all across, whether it's local agencies, state agencies saying, brace yourself, particularly here in this region. They're afraid and bracing for what could be the worst storm in over 100 years. And Hallie, I'm standing in front of what is a major concern. These are communities that are already vulnerable from Hurricane Helene. This is damage we saw from whether it was storm surge or flooding. We saw a lot of this. These are the big dangers because you don't want this either floating or being carried by wind in your direction. And this is going to be a major top concern to remove all this debris. We know crews are working around the clock 24/7 to get this out of the way. I want to take you to what we heard from someone who's in Treasure Island. This is a hard-hit barrier island, and this is what he was telling us. He was saying, you know, they're exhausted. They've been working around the clock just to recover from Helene, and now they're bracing for Milton. Here's what he said. In terms of what we will see on these streets of Milton.
It'll be a war zone. We've been dealing with this for a week now, right? And we're still trying to clear out stuff. It's devastating.
Hallie, we are seeing mass evacuations in places that we also haven't seen before. Zone A is pretty typical. Those are the low-lying areas susceptible to storm surge and flooding. But we are seeing Zone A, Zone B, Zone C, essentially those areas, homes, businesses further inland. I've been talking to fire and rescue first responders. They are saying they are seeing more people voluntarily evacuate than they've ever seen before. And of course, they are really going hard, going door to door, making sure that everyone is out of these homes. And another thing, we're also talking about the traffic concerns. This is something that Governor Ron DeSantis was saying, referencing Hurricane Irma, when we saw almost 7 million people taking to the roads. Hallie, we now know, we just learned that they have opened up the highway shoulders, they have opened the tolls, and they are also opening up garages in places like where we are to get people to park their cars, to make sure that those electric vehicles are not within harm's way, because we know that that can be a fire hazard, especially when electric vehicles come in contact with seawater. So a lot of precautions happening now as we speak, Hallie.
I mean, I'm looking at that pile behind you, Marissa. I think folks know first rule of getting ready for a hurricane is like strap down anything that could blow away. But you've got piles like that, as you point out, all over the region. Marissa, thank you for being there. We're going to check back in with you, I know, as the storm gets closer. And Bill, it is getting closer, right? We are still some 48 hours out. Talk to us about the timing and importantly here, talk to us about the track.
Yeah, everyone wants to know where's the devastation going to be. It's going to be somewhere. You know, we have this monster of a hurricane. It's already pushing water towards Florida, and that's only going to get worse in the days ahead. So even though it's technically going to be less intense by the time it gets to Florida, it's already going to have set that wall of water in motion to hitting Florida. I mean, what happened with Katrina? Katrina was a Category 5. It pushed a ton of water towards the northern Gulf. It actually made landfall as a Category 3. Does that sound familiar? This is supposed to make landfall as a Category 3. And so the storm surge is sometimes baked in before. Even if it weakens at the last minute, it's too late. So this is the path. The Hurricane Center has it peaking in intensity likely tonight, early tomorrow morning, and then it slowly begins to get less intense. Still a major hurricane. We're still going to get considerable wind damage, but the storm surge is really the thing that's going to cause, the historic damage, the possibility of water at levels never seen, destruction never seen, thousands of buildings. So these are all our latest computer models. You want to be north of these. If you're south of these, you get the worst of the storm surge. The black line's the Hurricane Center. A lot of our models are now hinting a little bit south. So, Tampa's going over 100 years. They've dodged so many bullets with so many storms. There's still a chance it could go south of Tampa, and Tampa Bay, it's okay. But this population is high from Sarasota to Pinellas County, St. Petersburg. It doesn't really matter. And this was the big update. 10 to 15 feet now south of that landfall. And that includes the potential for Tampa to Sarasota. Florida. Here's a zoomed-in look at Tampa Bay. Everywhere in red shows you where the water would be if we get to 9 feet. I don't even have a map that goes up to 10 to 15 feet. We have to build that. So it just gives you an idea of how large of a population. Everybody in the Tampa Bay, these are all houses where all this is located, Hallie. And this is that center. And, yeah, and you can see how the water would just get sucked in here as the storm gets closer. You want to draw out a worst-case scenario for a hurricane hitting a major population center. This black line is it right now. Tampa needs this to change.
I'm looking at that, Bill. I mean, there are so many, we talked about this for that storm that hit up in the Big Bend. Fewer people live there. Still some people, so it's a concern. Further south, you've got the Everglades, right? Still some people, but fewer people. I mean, this is a total population center, as you point out. There's a ton of folks who are right along that black line.
And Hallie, the difference is, like, we saw the pictures there from Treasure Island. The water went in the homes. It was only a couple feet deep. They lost their possessions, but their houses were still surviving. So picture instead another 6 feet on top of that. And then you got those homes underwater. Yeah. I don't know if there's a lot of structures that are going to be able to be saved. Like with Helene, we had a lot damaged. We didn't have to rebuild from scratch. The fear with this one is that we may have to in a lot of cases.
All right, I know you and so many folks in that region are preparing for some sleepless nights ahead this week. Bill, thank you very much. Let me bring in Chase Kane out in Orlando. And Chase, there is a nexus to this. You know it, Bill knows it, and that is the climate connection here, because this thing got so big so quickly, partly because of how warm the water is in the Gulf caused by climate change.
Yeah, and Milton didn't just blow through what the criteria is for rapid intensification. It blew through even the criteria for extreme rapid intensification, which is a new term. And people here in Orlando are taking it seriously. I mean, we have yet another truckload of sand that they are bringing into the area because people have been lined up for 4 hours. We actually have some drone video of the line of cars. People telling us they got in line around 1 p.m. and they're just now leaving here with their sandbags. As of a couple of hours ago, Orange County said that they had given out more than 100,000 sandbags. The threat here in Orlando is for intense flash flooding, something they had with Ian and something local city leaders are concerned about again.
The problem is these storms are getting more and more and more intense. We never had storms where we had 6 inches of rain in less than an hour in a regular afternoon storm, which caused some localized flooding a couple of weeks ago. This is going to be a lot worse than that.
Yeah, so the potential of maybe 10 inches of rain here, and they're going to keep filling up the sand here because people have really about 36, 48 hours, Hallie, before the worst of Milton arrives here in Central Florida.
Chase Kane, thank you very much. Glad to have you there. Appreciate it. I will talk with you again, I know, throughout the week. So listen, you saw what's happening with Hurricane Milton and the damage from Hurricane Helene that people are still dealing with in Florida. It is an even worse situation up in North Carolina, where the focus today is on how they get to recovery at this point, with more than 130,000 people still without power. Some of them still don't have water, so no electricity, no running water, and they're going on now 10 days in this kind of situation. Antonia Hilton is in Burnsville with the latest on the recovery push there. Hey, Antonia.
Hey, Hallie, it's really starting to set in for people just how challenging and how long this recovery may be. In the Asheville area, some residents have been told that it will be weeks before they have running water again. I'm in Burnsville. This is a much more small and remote community in the mountains, about 40 to 60 minutes away from the city of Asheville. And some people are telling us they were told that it could be a few months before their water is back and their infrastructure is back to normal. So that's, of course, devastating. People here, of course, they need food still and hot meals. They need cleaning supplies and they need bottles of water. But soon, as the weather gets colder, it's already October, they're going to need winter clothing, jackets, blankets, and sleeping bags. And so, I think this is important context, especially in this moment now where politics, concerns about disinformation and misinformation are starting to come into the conversation too. And I think it's important to put these things into two camps. The first is that because of all of what I just described, there are a lot of people who are righteously hurting and worried. They're wondering why there isn't more federal aid. In this community, many people have told me they simply have not seen FEMA representatives. They know they're here in the state, but they just haven't seen them with their own eyes. And so, of course, what comes with that is a feeling of abandonment. But then the other side of the conversation are the kinds of things that we've heard from former President Trump at rallies or Elon Musk, suggesting that the money has been taken to migrants instead, when in fact those are two different government programs and two different budgets, that FEMA's only going to give up to $750 to people when that's one form of assistance, but there are other forms of assistance that people can make applications for, and already millions of dollars of aid have been approved just in this state alone. And so it's sort of balancing those two things, the reality that FEMA may need to send more people into communities like this one, to have more of a ground presence and to acknowledge the hurt that people truly do have, while also trying to parse through some of the misinformation so that people aren't afraid and they are able to call when they are in need to apply for things that they deserve and make the decisions that they need to make during what's already going to be a complicated enough recovery without the added layer of the misinformation and the conspiracies that can already just compound all the anxiety people here are feeling, Hallie.
Antonia Hilton, thank you very much for that. Let's take you overseas now, where Israel tonight is warning people to stay away from the coast in Lebanon as they plan to expand military operations there. Now 1 year since the October 7th Hamas attacks. Israelis are marking this day with solemn ceremonies and no end in sight to the war consuming much of the region. Exactly 1 year ago, 1,200 people were killed, 250 others kidnapped in that brutal Hamas attack. Since then, more than 42,000 people have been killed in Gaza, with the number of hostages still in captivity, including Keith Siegel, whose wife, Aviva, was held in Gaza for nearly 2 months.
Keith is 65 years old and is in Gaza underneath the ground with hardly no oxygen. Can you think about your father being there? I don't think that anybody would want somebody that they love to be lying underneath the ground and not having a little bit of air, a little bit of sun.
Israel says it'll keep fighting as through it all. Here in the U.S., hundreds of students again protest on Columbia's campus in dueling demonstrations with people clashing on both sides. Let's bring in Aaron McLaughlin from Tel Aviv now. Israel is picking up heavy attacks, not just in Lebanon, but in Gaza, too, right? Talk to us about the latest.
Yeah, that's right, Hallie. In the last 24 hours, according to Palestinian officials, more than 60 Palestinians have been killed in Gaza. This as Israel launches yet another offense there in the north, ordering the evacuation of some 300,000 Palestinians and targeting the Jabalia refugee camp. It is worth noting that this is the fourth time the Israeli military has launched an offensive on that refugee camp, and this is where the Israeli military is a year into the war, which raises a whole host of questions given that Hamas is much smaller in size than Hezbollah, and given the limited nature of the operation, the Israeli military says will be concentrated there on the border with Lebanon. What can they possibly achieve? Now, also today, Israel was the subject of multiple attacks from 3 different fronts: rockets fired from Gaza, rockets fired from Lebanon, and rockets fired from Yemen. This as the region is bracing for Israel's response to Iran's missile strikes from last week. Hallie.
And Aaron, as people in Israel are remembering the deadliest day in the country's history, it is a somber moment for them, for so many.
Yeah, that's right, Hallie. I was at the gathering in Hostage Square, what's known as Hostage Square here in Tel Aviv. Thousands of Israelis gathering and openly weeping. There's so much sadness. It's clear that what happened on October 7th, the horrors that unfolded, is still a gaping and open wound. That's especially true for Rita Lifshitz. She's a resident of kibbutz Nir Oz, one of the hardest hit of the kibbutzim. A quarter of that kibbutz was either kidnapped or killed on October 7th. Her father-in-law, 84 years old, is thought to still be inside Gaza. And she says that she is extremely concerned that with this ever-expanding war, that he could be potentially left behind along with the other hostages. Hallie.
Aaron McLaughlin, thank you very much. We mentioned those protests happening at college campuses, including Columbia now. You're taking a look at one of them. This is just moments ago in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Let me bring in George Solis, because, George, you were just back from Columbia, where we saw some of this happen earlier today, right?
Yeah, that's right, Hallie. And I got to tell you, the mood was somber. There was obviously people that were reflecting on a year of heartache, a year of so many questions. For the most part, a lot of these demonstrations have been peaceful, as you see people just marching there. At Columbia specifically, we did see, aside from the Jewish students and Jewish faculty there, taking those moments to just be somber and reflect. We also saw pro-Palestinian students within the halls and organizers within the halls of Columbia. And again, for the most part, all of that was peaceful. But of course, it did create some tensions inside of campus. A lot of the students telling us today, listen, this is not something we really wanted to see. We didn't want to have any sort of interaction or any sort of heated moment. For us today, October 7th, is a day of personal reflection, a day to remember those lives that were lost, and a day to think about the hostages and the families who are still looking to reunite with their loved ones. And I can tell you, Hallie, within just the last few minutes or so, NYPD telling us that they have made multiple arrests here in the city as a part of these demonstrations, as well as multiples that have been detained. We do not have a specific number on the totals yet, but it tells you just, again, how many people are gathering during these celebrations, during these demonstrations, excuse me. And these have not just been a one-day event. We have seen this throughout the weekend, both Israel and pro-Palestinian demonstrations. Today we spoke with people at those demonstrations. Here's what they told us.
We don't have that sound, George, but I know you were chatting with some of those folks. Give us a sense of what they said.
Yeah, well, again, a lot of them really just saying they can't lose hope. They want to make sure that the message is not lost, that they will keep fighting and keep hoping that the hostages are returned, even though we are no closer to a ceasefire deal. They say the only thing they can do is to keep hope alive for those families that are longing to reunite with their loved ones, Hallie.
George Solis, live for us there in New York. George, thank you very much. Later this hour, by the way, our Raf Sanchez will take a deeper look as we talk about 1 year since October 7th at what life is like now for those young kids now freed from Gaza. To politics now, with Vice President Kamala Harris set to arrive in New York any minute. But before she left, she's slamming Florida Governor Ron DeSantis for not taking her call about Hurricane Milton. Watch this.
Playing political games with this moment in these crisis situations. These are the height of emergency situations. It's just utterly irresponsible, and it is selfish, and it is about political gamesmanship instead of doing the job that you took an oath to do, which is to put the people first.
A source familiar with the situation tells NBC News the governor is not taking the calls because, in the words of a DeSantis aide, they, quote, seemed political. Let me bring in Aaron Gilchrist, who's joining us now. There's a big hurricane coming to Florida here. So pull these threads here.
So normally when we have natural disasters like this, you will get a call from a president to a governor to a mayor to all the folks who are dealing with whatever the trauma is on the ground. And that's what happened in this case. President Biden reached out to Florida Governor Ron DeSantis after Hurricane Hallie. He invited the governor to go with him on a tour when he did an aerial tour in Florida. There were reasons. I think DeSantis was on a plane or helicopter at the time when Biden called, so that's why they didn't connect then. And then he didn't go on the tour with him ultimately because he was doing something else somewhere else in the state. In this instance now, we know the vice president also reached out to the governor's office, and it seems some of our reporting seems to indicate that the DeSantis team didn't answer the call deliberately, according to an aide who spoke to one of our reporters at NBC News, and then said that there were concerns that it seemed political. Like her phone call was not one to be supportive, but one that was about politics, looking presidential, perhaps in this case. And so that's the sort of space that we're in right now. I think it's just, a few more weeks before the election, and there's that contentiousness.
Yeah, a few weeks, 4 to be exact, as of tomorrow, of course. And as we're closing in on this home stretch here, you've got Vice President Harris, even as some Republicans have gone after her for, in their view, not doing enough media interviews, not getting that out there and being sort of present and public enough. That is changing this week. Take a look at this media blitz. She's got, Howard Stern, Colbert tomorrow. She's got The View as well. Some of these are friendlier outlets, some less so, like when Tim Walz did Fox News Sunday. Fox, not exactly friendly turf for the Democratic Party in most instances. What's with this strategy shift here as you look at the vice president talking on Call Her Daddy with Alex Cooper, et cetera?
Yeah, so the campaign has said that they want to start doing these high-impact media appearances.
What does that mean?
So I think they're referencing, you've got these different shows, Howard Stern, Colbert, Call Her Daddy. They're platforms where there are millions of listeners, viewers, that sort of thing. And so they can reach out to these audiences. And there is some internal data that suggests that when the vice president shows up and can have these sort of personal or semi-personal, or at least through the camera personal moments where she's not doing these hardcore sit-down interviews, but can be a little more off the cuff, that perhaps it resonates more with people. And so they want to put her in those spaces over the next 30 days to try to have that sort of exposure and to win over those last few voters who may potentially still be undecided.
Aaron Gilchrist, right here on our own high-impact show on NBC News Now. Thank you, Aaron. Any minute now, we talk about former President Trump. He's going to remember the October 7th attacks at an event near his Florida home. Want to show you him earlier up in New York at a Jewish holy site in Queens. But it's his rhetoric on another topic that's really ramping up lately, those baseless allegations about election fraud. Not even in the 2020 election, which he lost and still lies about, but on the one that literally hasn't even happened yet, the one coming up in November. He appears to be preemptively sowing the seeds of doubt if he loses this time around. Keep in mind, none of the votes have even been counted yet, despite Mr. Trump's repeated insistence on one word in particular. Listen for it.
They cheat, but they cheat from months before. I've never seen anything like it.
They're going to cheat. They cheat. That's all they want to do is cheat. We win, and when we win, we're going to prosecute people that cheat on this election.
You got to get out and vote and make sure they're not cheating. Make sure your vote counts.
These people cheat. They cheat like hell. If you have mail-in ballots, there will be cheating. Our primary focus is not to get out the vote. It's to make sure they don't cheat. Anybody that can cheat on elections like they cheat is not stupid.
Dasha Burns is in Doral. To be super clear, we said it before we played that mashup. We're going to say it again here. Not a vote has been counted. The election has not happened yet, and there is zero evidence that there is, in fact, cheating in an election that has not occurred. But there's a broader question here, too, which is whether strategically there's anybody inside Mr. Trump's orbit, if not the candidate himself, who's concerned that that kind of language and rhetoric could actually depress turnout for Mr. Trump's base.
Well, look, the campaign doesn't love it. They don't love it when he talks about 2020. They don't love it when he talks about cheating. And he's setting up this sort of mental jungle gym of sorts, because on the one hand, he's saying they're going to cheat, and they've cheated before. On the other hand, he's telling voters to get out there, and he's now emphasizing and supporting absentee voting, mail-in voting, early voting, which he spent years after 2020 saying is a method of fraud. But I'll tell you, Hallie, when I talk to voters, they're kind of happy to do those mental gymnastics. They will support him when he says, those lies about cheating in 2020 and in 2024, but they are willing to go vote early, absentee, and on Election Day, Hallie.
Why now? Why does he seem to be, as you've noted, Dasha, as you've traveled with him on the campaign trail now for many, many months, why does he seem to be turning this up to an 11?
I mean, I really noticed that shift in the weeks that Harris first took the top of the Democratic ticket. There was a different vibe at Trump rallies, period, when it was President Biden at the top of the ticket. There wasn't as much talk about cheating. There wasn't as much of the sort of dark, angry rhetoric that we're hearing now. They felt like they had it in the bag, and it was really celebratory, and maybe even a preemptive victory lap as he was heading to these campaign stops. Now that race has tightened. Now he's sowing those seeds of doubt because the dynamics have totally changed, and he's clearly angry about that, and he's making that known, Hallie.
Clearly. Dasha, real quick, what's this Doral event behind you? This is a commemoration of the October 7th attacks, right? Or will be?
Commemoration of the October 7th attacks. The campaign tells me it's going to be a somber event honoring those who have been lost, honoring the hostages. And the Jewish vote is something that the former president has been wanting to win over, although he said some interesting and inflammatory things about how he is concerned that if he loses, it might be because of the Jewish vote not being fully in his favor, which, of course, some have taken offense to, Hallie.
Dasha Burns, live for us there in South Florida for us tonight. Dasha, much more to follow in the 4 weeks and 1 day until Election Day. Appreciate it. Coming up here on the show, much more to get to, including how a school bus carrying dozens of children ended up flipped over on a field in Ireland. Very scary. So Whole Foods is pulling a 180 tonight after this whole social media firestorm over what it puts in a super popular cake. Stay with me. This actually is there's an economic tie-in, right? So these are fans of the berry chantilly cake, which we're showing you, going online in the last few weeks, noticing that newly rolled out slices of the cake were were stuffed with not berries and cream, but a jam instead. Watch.
Whole Foods Chantilly cake is a victim of shrinkflation. I don't know if you can see that. The berries are on the outside, and they just put like some jam in the middle. Also, it's half the size it used to be.
So you heard her there, right? Some of his customers are saying, wait a second, this is a classic case of skimpflation. When companies change the ingredients, change the quality to try to cut down on costs. So in this instance, not, fresh fruit, but jam instead. In the last few years, you had brands like Gatorade changing the designs of their bottles, making them smaller. Customers also noticed that Scott toilet paper, for example, seemed to have changed what it made the TP from, which they say didn't, feel as good when we went to the bathroom. As for the cake, Whole Foods says, all right, they've heard you. They're going to reverse course. They're going to restore the slices to the original recipe as soon as this week. Emily Aketa is joining us now with more. The story is not the cake, Emily. The story is what the cake represents here, right? In this moment where so many people are feeling like their hard-earned dollars just don't go as far.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think an important thing to remember here is just 2 years ago, we saw some of the highest inflation levels recorded in a matter of decades. So while we are seeing some improvement in inflation now, people are we are in the wake of a severe inflationary period. Food prices are up some 25% compared to the start of the pandemic. So that means consumers, they are sensitive to the value of things. They're not just looking at the price tags. They're not just looking at the quantity, how much is in the bag. They're not just looking at the quality, what it's made of, but they're even shifting their shopping habits to make sure that they can get to the best deals as possible. And here is a situation where they feel like the quality went down, but the price didn't, Hallie.
What about this cake moved the needle to get a company like Whole Foods to do something so quickly about it? I mean, this is, to be clear, this is a popular cake.
Yes, absolutely. This was a viral cake before this whole skimpflation thing. This was a very popular cake for some 20 years. It's been at Whole Foods. So people really care when they notice changes to it. And of course, sometimes companies, we will see them, they will switch out ingredients for a number of different reasons. Maybe it saves them money, and they typically do so in a quiet fashion. Maybe it's for accessibility, some kind of ingredient they can't access because of supply chain slowdowns. But this is one that fans definitely noticed. And in the digital age, the age of social media, companies get immediate feedback, and this is one where people really shared that feedback, and it reached a viral sensation. By the way, Hallie, of course, for research purposes.
I knew you'd have it. I knew it. Yes.
Of course. And I will say, it's these berries that people are so interested in. This is my second piece. It is good. I get it. I get it, people. I'm glad they fought the good fight.
You have the OG cake. That's not jam. That's not compote. That's
right.
For real. Yeah.
They're bringing it back. The whole cake still has the OG cake, but they are bringing it back by slice too. So I'll have to send some to DC for you.
Oh my God, please do. Emily Aketa, queen of the props. Thank you. Enjoy. Thanks for talking us through it. Let's get you over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, a Russian court sentencing a 72-year-old American to nearly 7 years in prison today for allegedly acting as a mercenary for Ukraine. Russian investigators say Stephen James Hubbard was paid $1,000 a month to serve in a Ukrainian defense unit. They say he signed up in February 2022. The same month, Moscow sent troops to Ukraine. The U.S. Embassy in Russia tells NBC News they cannot comment because of privacy. Number 2, the Georgia Supreme Court today reinstating the state's 6-week abortion ban. The latest twist in the story of that ban. Remember, just last week, a lower court judge had blocked the ban from going into effect, but the state is now appealing, so it will remain in effect while the appeal goes through. Number 3, gospel singer Cissy Houston, Whitney Houston's mom, has died at the age of 91. You'll remember she put out Grammy-winning albums, and she sang backup for Aretha Franklin, for Elvis Presley, and more. She'd been under hospice care for Alzheimer's, and according to Variety, she died at home in New Jersey today. Number 4, thousands of people are reporting problems with Verizon's cell service today after a different Verizon outage last week and a different AT&T one a couple months back. Verizon says, fortunately, it is now fixed. Number 5, LeBron James and his son Bronny making history, becoming the first father-son duo to play together in an NBA game. Look at that. During the LA Lakers preseason game, LeBron and Bronny on the field, on the court, I guess, right? Shooting hoops. Preseason, but still cool. LeBron says it's surreal. Coming up, more to get to. The search and rescue mission in Bosnia growing more serious by the minute. Take a look at this. The natural disaster displacing hundreds. Then the shocking arrest of an NFL star. What else we're learning about the accusations against him next. NBC News covers hundreds of international stories every day, and because it can be tough to read or watch or listen to them all, our teams around the world have done it for you. Here's a look at what they're watching in a segment we call The Global. Out of Bosnia, you've got emergency service teams working to find people who are still missing after really bad flooding that killed at least 19 people. Look at the damage here. At some points, it looks like whole houses were just swallowed up and washed away. Some people there suggest the floodwaters might have been more than 15 feet high. Out of the Democratic Republic of Congo, health workers are getting their first dose of Mpox vaccines, part of the country's push to try to contain the outbreak there. Congo is reporting more than 30,000 cases of the virus so far this year, and nearly 1,000 people have died. It's still not clear when the vaccine will roll out for the general public. Out of Northern Ireland, 4 kids ended up in the hospital after this. Look at that, a school bus carrying dozens of students flipping over on a field. More than 40 kids were on board. One student told our partners at Sky News the bus hit a post and then went down a hill. Officials say fire trucks and a special rescue team responded to the site. Back here at home, a star safety and team captain for the New England Patriots tonight has been charged with assault and battery, strangulation, and drug possession. This is Jabril Peppers appearing in a Massachusetts court where he pleaded not guilty. He was arrested over the weekend after police responded to a call about a fight between Peppers and his girlfriend, according to court documents. According to the police report, a woman was treated by EMS at the scene. Peppers has been ordered not to have any contact with the alleged victim. Tremaine Lee is joining us now with more. Did we learn anything else from today's arraignment? What do we know about what else allegedly happened?
Hallie, we did learn a little bit. As you mentioned, police were called to a home around 4 a.m. on Saturday for that alleged altercation between Peppers and his girlfriend. Now, what we learned from court documents today is that he, quote, hit her, choked her, took off her clothing, and put her outside. She repeated that he choked her at least 6 times, and she did not lose consciousness. Now, when police arrived, Peppers said, "I know what is going on," and he was arrested without incident. But they also found a clear plastic bag with a white powdery substance. They tested it, and it came out to be cocaine.
What is next for Peppers, Tremaine? Have we heard anything from the Patriots about this whole thing?
Yeah, so Peppers posted $2,500 bail. His next court appearance is a few days before Thanksgiving, November 22nd. He was actually allowed to waive his appearance. Now, the team did release a statement. They said, quote, "We are aware of an incident involving Jabril Peppers over the weekend in which the police are currently investigating. We will have no further comment at this time." Now, first-year coach Gerard Mayo, he said this.
He's not in the building today. He has his appearance and things like that. But as we gather information, he can definitely be in the building. Like we don't know enough to say he shouldn't be in the building.
Now, Mayo also said that the players need to know about this, and perhaps whatever happened might be a teaching moment, something to learn from. Hallie.
Tremaine Lee, thank you for that update. Appreciate it. To the original now with in-depth reporting on a topic we've been watching. And tonight, it is a super controversial so-called suicide capsule. And the advocacy groups behind it who say they've stopped taking applications for it because of a criminal investigation. Last month, an American woman was the first to use the device intended for assisted suicide in a Swiss forest. Switzerland has some of the most permissive laws in the world for assisted suicide, but the use of this capsule has become a flashpoint. Yasmin Vasugian has more, with a warning that this deals with topics some viewers may find upsetting.
An American woman is dead after a novel suicide in Switzerland. The woman choosing the time and manner of her own death, described as being, quote, seriously ill by the organization, The Last Resort, who provided the device dubbed the suicide capsule. The only man present when she died at a private forest retreat, arrested by Swiss authorities and in pretrial detention. Despite assisted suicide being legal in Switzerland, the group running the device now suspending applications. The suicide took place on September 23rd inside the 3D printed Sarco capsule developed by an Australian physician.
So you've got a precipitous drop in the oxygen level in the capsule.
Here, the physician, Dr. Philip Nitschke, describing the capsule before it was used.
Within 2 breaths of air of that low level of oxygen, they will start to feel disorientated. uncoordinated, slightly euphoric before losing consciousness.
In a statement after the suicide, he said he was, quote, pleased that the Sarco had performed exactly as it had been designed to do. But almost immediately after its first use, an investigation launched by local authorities with a number of arrests made and, quote, the Sarco suicide capsule secured. The organization says the woman was 64 years old but refused to release her identity. They went on to say, quote, she had explained and confirmed beforehand that she wished to die for a long time and would be acting voluntarily to end her own life in the Sarco. They also said she pushed the button that activated the nitrogen, which killed her, voluntarily and unaided. The Last Resort and Exit International, an organization advocating for the right of adults to end their lives, believe no laws were broken. According to the organization website, the Sarco suicide capsule, quote, lowers the level of oxygen in the capsule to lethal levels. The person inside breathes normally. Consciousness is lost within seconds. Death follows peacefully a few minutes later.
I pretty much believe that it's like falling asleep at night in your own bed when you're seeking your dreams.
That activist and developer was present when the American woman died and is still in detention, according to the Last Resort. Under Swiss law, assisted suicide is legal as long as it's done altruistically, if the patient has decision-making capacity and can actually initiate the suicide themselves. Here in the U.S., it's legal in 11 states now, as well as D.C., with a measure on the ballot in 3 more states this year, according to advocacy group Death with Dignity. And those laws only apply to legal residents of those states.
Physician-assisted suicide has been legal in parts of the U.S. since the 90s, but the laws are incredibly narrow. We're really talking about people who are going to unfortunately die soon anyway, and in most cases want to abbreviate the end of their lives to avoid suffering.
It's also legal in at least 10 other countries, according to the World Federation of Right to Die Societies. Back in Switzerland, the country's more permissive laws around assisted suicide attracting visitors.
Activists would say that Switzerland is the one place in the world that allows so-called suicide tourism. Effectively, a person can fly into Switzerland and receive a physician-assisted death in a clinic outside Zurich within a few days.
The Last Resort now saying it halted applications to use the Sarco, adding that 371 people were applying, but that the process will be suspended until the criminal investigation is concluded.
Yasmin Vasugian is joining us now. Yas, it's our understanding that on the same day as this American woman died, the Swiss health minister was actually speaking with Parliament about this exact device, right?
Yeah, so the Last Resort, the organization here, they actually issued a statement on this saying, in fact, it was completely coincidental that the prime minister was speaking about the Sarco, this kind of quote-unquote suicide capsule, the same day that it was being used for, by the way, the very first time for the death of this woman. And you ask, right, why, in fact, were folks arrested if it is legal in Switzerland for assisted suicide? I want to read for you exactly what the prime minister said in her address, or the health minister, I should say, in her address, saying, on one hand, it does not fulfill the demands of the product safety law, and as such must not be brought into circulation. Going on to say, on the other hand, the corresponding use of nitrogen is not compatible with the article on purpose in the chemicals law, essentially saying that this capsule was built to kill and it is not safe to use, and also that the use of nitrogen is illegal under the laws in Switzerland. So that's in one box. Then also just addressing what's on the measure here in the United States. 3 states right now with assisted suicide on the ballot. We got Michigan, New York, Hal, and Pennsylvania.
Yasmin Vasugian, thank you very much for that. Just a reminder, if you or somebody you know is struggling, you can call or text the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline by dialing 988 or by texting HOME to 741-741. 1 year after the October 7th attacks in Israel, how children held as hostages in Gaza are coping now. To the Middle East now, and today protests in Israel, like in Tel Aviv, calling for the release of the 100 or so hostages still in Gaza, taken by Hamas on October 7th. We don't know how many of them are alive. For the ones who made it out of Gaza, for them and their families, it is not easy to move on. Our Raf Sanchez spoke with a man whose wife and 2 daughters were taken hostage 1 year ago and who are now home.
It began with this heart-stopping video. Yoni Asher watching in disbelief as his wife Daron and 2 daughters were seized by Hamas, loaded onto a tractor, and kidnapped into Gaza.
That video, I think, changed my life.
We first met Yoni on October 9th, 48 hours after the attack, as he searched for scraps of information about Doron and their children, Raz, 5, and Aviv, 2.
You never imagine your girls and your wife would fall down to Hamas' hands.
Showing us how he tracked his wife's phone as it disappeared into Gaza. For 49 days, Yoni had no news of his family.
ממחר גשם, חורף, מה יהיה על ילדינו הקטנים? איך נוכל לישון בלילה?
And then, just after Thanksgiving, a hostage deal. Doron, Raz, and Aviv freed in the temporary ceasefire and back in their father's arms. Today, not even a full year after her release, Raz looks like any other carefree kid on the beach. But the journey here hasn't been easy.
Sometimes Raz is saying to me that she is afraid and she's having nightmares and she sees the evil persons in her mind all the time.
Are they the same little girls they were before October 7th?
Well, unfortunately, no. I can tell you that this is not the same girls. Sometimes my younger daughter, Aviv, she has something that's called night fears. She's screaming that someone is hurting her, her stomach is hurting, she's crying, and there is nothing you can do about it.
The sight of a tractor enough to snap the girls back to the moment of their kidnapping. Sometimes Raz asks her dad, why wasn't he with them on that awful day?
The most difficult part is me not being with them, even though rationally I know that if I was with them, I would not be released.
In Gaza, the girls were, at first, held in a family apartment, like this one, stormed by Israeli troops during a rescue mission. Later, they remember being moved to a cramped cell in Nasser Hospital. Their grandmother, Efrat, was killed on October 7th. Her partner, 80-year-old Gadi Moses, like most of the men, is still a hostage.
Your whole family is getting support. Is it helping?
We are getting in therapy and we're getting social worker support, yet there is no professional knowledge about those kind of situations, so we have to follow our instinct.
Despite everything they've been through, the girls have shown extraordinary resilience, returning to their old school and settling back into their lives.
They are forcing us to get better, because a child forces you to sing, to smile, to dance. You have no choice, and that heals you.
They're keeping you strong?
They're keeping me strong. They are inspiration to me. This is the true victory, not a revenge, not hate, to make sure that their life will be long and full with happiness.
A family that's healing, one step at a time.
Raf Sanchez is joining us now from Tel Aviv. Raf, it is so powerful to hear him talk about having to smile and sing for the kids, that in so many ways it's the little girls who are helping the rest of the family, quote unquote, readjust. But as you point out, as he points out, that is a very long process, and it's going to take a lot of support and a lot of help.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Yoni and his family have walked a very difficult road already. They have a very difficult road ahead. Yoni told me he is optimistic that because his daughters were so young, 2 and 5, that they may potentially be able to put this traumatic experience behind them in a way that an older child, a teenager, might struggle to. And the family is now readjusting from, these literally life and death questions that they were facing to just how do you put a normal life back together? Yoni is trying to get his business back up and running, but he is also very, very committed to the other 101 hostages who are still in Gaza. He's campaigning for their release. Hallie, it's worth saying there were around 30 children and teenagers who were kidnapped by Hamas on October 7th. Almost all of them out of Gaza now, except for the 2 youngest hostages, the baby Kafir Bibas, who is 9 months old, and his 4-year-old brother. Their fate remains unknown. Hallie.
Raf Sanchez, live for us in Tel Aviv. Raf, thank you very much. That does it for us. More coverage picks up right now.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.